Hello, everybody. I don't know why the webcam is not working. Hang on, stand by. I will get this working in just a second. What the heck is going on here? Curious. No, there's nothing there. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to restart the stream. Hang on. All right. Okay, we should be back. It looks like we are. I apologize. I don't know what on earth happened there. The camera basically just did not start. But anyway, fixed. All I had to do is, it would seem all I needed to do was restart OBS. So I don't know why OBS did not pick up the camera, because it should have. That was fun. Yeah, let's try not doing that again. Okay, what do you mean way out of sync? Are we out of sync? Yes, we are. I think. Are we out of sync? The sound is on. OBS is picking up sound, so we should have audio. Okay, anybody still having issues? I would say just refresh. Okay, refresh the page. Because I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Yeah, Keith says in sync in Canada. So basically, it's a you, not me end. So you need to just refresh your page, and everything should be fine. So anybody having issues with audio, anybody having issues with sync, just refresh your page, and it should be fine. But you're going to have to tell me that it's fine. Yeah, refresh fixed it for Tony. All right, so that's good. So just refresh your refresh the YouTube page, and it should be fine. So we've only got 10 people here, so it could be a short show, to tell the truth. Yesterday I did, for those of you that didn't see it, yesterday was the launch of Fender Studio, which is pretty much a brand new, really simple, really basic little recording app made by Fender, which was launched yesterday. And I did a little overview of what it is, what it looks like, how it works. So if you want to check that out, I did that as a live stream. So you can check that out here on this channel. If you're on the page, you just click on the lives button, and then you should see it as pretty much the last thing we did. And there's little I used the Fender Studio ad as the thumbnail for the live stream that I did yesterday. So if you're interested in checking that out and you didn't see, because you weren't here yesterday, you didn't realize that there would be a show on yesterday, because it was not planned. It was well, to me it was planned, but I didn't really advertise that I was doing it, because you know, I didn't want to kind of like advertise it ahead of the actual launch itself, and therefore kind of break NDA. So I deliberately didn't really advertise it until after Fender Studio had launched. Brett said, I had to go back out and re-enter so I could get my live chat window to show up again. Yeah, basically that... The reason why some of these issues have occurred is because I had to restart the stream. Because for some reason OBS did not pick up the camera. And it's entirely possible that the reason for that was that another application had been using the camera and was still basically holding on to it. But restarting OBS seemed to resolve that. So let's see, who have we got here tonight? We've got Billy Morgan first in the door as per usual. Boris Dancy is here. Goldberg is here from Salzburg, which is awesome. Salzburg is one of my favorite places in all of Europe. And it is 1 a.m. for you, so you are up super duper late. And I appreciate that very much, Gob. I'm very glad you are here. Welcome. Tony Stringer is here. Brett Marlowe is here, as we've been saying earlier. Dwayne is here. Cal Drajuzak is here. Don Oliver and Keith are also here. And that is it so far. Brett says, no, YouTube does that to me every time I refresh on a live stream. So dumb. Yeah, it's quite likely that the whole live chat thing might actually be a bug in YouTube. That's entirely possible. That you have to basically go back out and come back in to get that to come back. I suspect that's a bug in YouTube. Dave from Aurora's Pouring Alice is also here, which is cool. So yeah, basically the kind of biggest news at the moment is the launch of Fender Studio yesterday. As I said, I did a bit of a deep dive yesterday, but I thought today that what we could do is we could have a look at Fender Studio from the songwriter's perspective. Basically, what is this like as a songwriting tool? How useful could this be to be a songwriting tool on the move? And I think actually from my experience that it is actually going to be very, very useful as a songwriter's tool, especially when you are on the move, when you are not in your studio. Like maybe you're on vacation, or maybe you are on a road trip and you are, on a train or something, on a very long train journey or a bus ride or something like that. Or you're on, you're on a very long plane flight. For example, getting from Los Angeles all the way over to Edinburgh. For example, that's a long plane ride. That's like 10.5 hours in the air. So, what can you do? You can watch movies, of course. You can read books, of course. But what if you want to do something musical and creative? Well, you kind of can with Fender Studio. Now, at the moment, there is no MIDI input into Fender Studio. Hopefully that will be something that will be added later down the line in the future. But for right now, it is just audio only. So you're kind of a little bit limited as to what you might be able to do on a plane, for example. But that's not to say that you can't do nothing, because, there are things you can do. I think probably one of the best ways in which this is going to be useful is when you're on holiday, when you've actually arrived at your destination. Let's say you've flown from LA to Edinburgh and you're now at the hotel and you're trying to find things to do to keep yourself awake because of jet lag, for example. So let's say you've got it on something like the iPad here. Well, in iPad form, it's pretty much exactly as it is on the Windows PC, which we looked at last night. So you can create a new session by clicking on the new button, or if you are in a point where you are ready to record immediately, you can just click the red record button. So I'm going to show you those now, so you get some idea of exactly what happens when you either create a new session or when you just hit the immediate record button. So let's go over to Fender Studio. Now, bear in mind, remember what I said last night? It takes a couple of seconds for audio to reset, because the sample rate of Fender Studio is a slightly different sample rate to everything else. But it's the same sample rate. It's the same sample rate. It's a different device block size, is what I should say. And basically what it does is, at the moment, Studio One is using my interface, as is OBS. So it is using the ASIO driver, and what it needs to do now is switch over to the class-compliant Windows audio driver. So let's click on this. And so we're in Fender Studio now, and I need to show the screen. There we go. And so what we can do is we can click on this guy to create a new session, and this is where the changeover will happen. Okay. And it's really that quick. And immediately you're presented with the add track dialog. So if you have a small little interface, maybe like the AudioBox Go or the brand newly released Fender Link IO, then it's a case of, if you're using the Link IO, it's just got one 1/4-inch jack input. You can plug your guitar straight in, and you can immediately just select this guitar track, and you can change the track icon to something a little bit more eye-catching, perhaps. And then you can grab one of these presets if you want to. I'm just going to leave it on no preset just for now, and we're going to use mic line instrument 2, because that's where the Fender Rhodes is. So we'll do that, and we'll go okay. And then we are ready to rock. And straight away, I can immediately get started with some recording. Let's maybe say we don't want the Fender Rhodes. We want just some regular piano. And let's say we want to do something that's a little bit slower. Let's say 75 BPM. And we've got the metronome on, and all we need to do really is just click record. All right, so there we have recorded something. And I'm going to turn the metronome off, and I'm going to back up, and I'm going to play this. And just like that, I'm immediately editing this after having just literally just recorded this in. Okay, so now that we've done that, one of the things we can do is we can go over to this guy over here, and we've got this guitar amp switched on, which we don't want because it's not a guitar. There, that sounds much more like a piano. Okay, so there we got our sketched out little idea for a melody with some chord changes. And I could just, expand upon this. I could add a vocal track, or I could pick, if it wasn't like 20 past midnight, I could go grab my flugelhorn and double that little piano melody on the flugelhorn. And then, I could also plug my bass in, and I could play some fretless bass. There's lots of things I could do. But if you're on the move and you're using your iPhone or your iPad, maybe you're just using the little built-in mic, or you're using the Audiobox Go. Audiobox Go, by the way, would be an ideal solution here, because you'd not only have the little instrument or line level input, but you'd also have the mic input as well. So if you've bundled your condenser mic in your luggage as well, and a little tabletop stand, and the Audiobox Go, plus your guitar, plus the the guitar cable, then you're good to go. You are all set to just use this to basically sketch out some basic ideas. So you could do a guitar track. I've done a piano track here, but you could do a guitar track. You could add a bass track if you've taken your bass with you as well. Most people wouldn't do that. They'd maybe just have a guitar, and then maybe overdub a vocal track. With this little melody that we've done, maybe I'd sketch out a few lyric ideas. Now the cool thing is, I can loop this here. So let's set that loop to 15 right there, and we can loop this. So if we've decided this is really nice and we want to spend some time just trying to figure out what lyrics we might write here, we've got our notepad, we've got our pen, we can just play this. So we can loop this a few times and we can work out some lyrics that would fit the mood of this little ballad, and then we could add, you know, some other parts using the guitar input or a microphone and record some additional background vocals. There's loads of things you could do. You could do, you know, mic up your tabletop with your little condenser mic, and you could use your tabletop as a rudimentary drum. Or if you want to, you know, if you want that sound of, you know, kind of like lounge jazz brushes on a snare drum, and you don't have a snare drum, but you do have brushes, and you find that there's a cardboard box, maybe the pizza box that you used from last night's dinner. Stick that on your lap, point the microphone at it, and use that to play brushes and come up with a nice little brush part, and it will sound pretty good. And then when you record that, you can use the EQ to roll off quite a bit of the low end, so you get a little bit of the cardboardiness out of it. And so you're left with just the nice swish sound that you might want, and make it just sound a bit less cardboardy and a little bit more like it's on a snare drum. That would certainly work. And you've got yourself a bass part, guitar part, a vocal, maybe some background vocals as well, and a little rhythm part, either on the tabletop or on a cardboard box. And you've got yourself a little sketched out song right there on your iPad. And then the cool thing is, Brett said, hey, you know, this might be great for on holiday, but you probably couldn't really do a whole lot on the plane. Yeah, you could. If you did all of this recording first whilst you're on holiday, when you're on the plane, you could spend some time mixing this. So you could basically stick your earbuds in, pair them up to your iPad, and then all you're doing is listening on your earbuds. Make sure they're good quality earbuds, because, you know, we want to be mixing on good quality earbuds so that you get a decent sound out of them. And then you can just set the bounce, you know, set the bounce of the levels, the panning, reverb, delay, EQ, compression. You can do that on all of the channels and just do some bare bones basic editing and mixing. And then the cool thing is, when you get home, you can send the session to Studio One via DAW Project, because both Fender Studio and Studio One both support DAW Project. So that means you can send from one to the other with no problem. So if you know you're going to be on holiday and you're working on a song in Studio One, and you want to do like mix down the rhythm parts or something so that you can like do the vocal whilst you're on holiday, you can do that. You can send the session. You could bounce the session down to audio if you wanted to, and then you could send that via DAW Project to Fender Studio, take that on holiday with you, do the vocal, come back, and then send it back to Studio One with the vocal in it. And, you know, you've done your vocal whilst you're on holiday, and you just brought it with you via Fender Studio. So there's lots of options for the songwriter for using Fender Studio. I think it's very, very versatile. Now, here's the thing. You can get started with a new song very, very quickly, as I showed you here, just by creating a new session. But there's also that red record now button. So let's go back to the home page here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to hit this button. And immediately you can see what that did was that created a new track and immediately started recording it. Now, interestingly enough, it didn't record the correct input. I don't know why it didn't record the correct input. Let's go and take a look. Because it was using the wrong one. It was using the wrong input. But at least it got us the idea. So now what I can do is I can delete that, and I can go back to the beginning. and I can hit record, and we are straight away recording. I've got this melody idea, I've got these lyrics ideas, I don't know what the chord changes are going to be, but I can sing this straight immediately into Fender Studio just by hitting that button. And the idea is being captured straight away with no fuss, with no bother, without having to spend time setting up a track, creating a new session, setting up a track and arming it, and then naming it and giving it the right icon, all of that preparatory stuff that you do, by which time the idea that that's popped into your head may be starting to dissipate. But with that red record now button, you are immediately recording. It creates the track for you. It arms it. It even presses record for you. So that is how incredibly quick and versatile this can be as a way of just getting an important idea down. Or let's say you are at a meeting and you're in a really important discussion and you want to record this discussion that you're having with somebody. Maybe you are developing ideas for, I don't know, for something. And you don't want to lose the essence of the ideas that are being spitballed in that moment, in that brainstorming session. You want to capture that so that nobody forgets it the next day. This is perfect for that too. It doesn't have to be songwriting or composing or anything like that. This can be great for just capturing an important idea that you've just had for maybe a new product or something else, whatever it might be. And as you can see, we're still recording. So let's stop the recording. I've just captured all of this great idea and I can hit record and we are straight away recording. I've got this melody idea, I've got these lyrics ideas, I don't know what the chord changes are going to be, but I can sing this straight immediately into Fender Studio just by hitting that button. And the idea is being captured straight away with no fuss, with no bother, without. So I've captured my nice idea. This could also be great if you are, let's say you are, you're a journalist and you are interviewing a subject. You're interviewing somebody. You can just hit record and straight away you can just be using the internal mic on the iPad. You just park the iPad between the two of you and you can do the interview that way. And you're capturing straight away. So I can see Fender Studio being useful in a wide variety of scenarios. I think this is great for getting a song idea that's literally just popped into your head, or improvisation that that's really just immediately popped into your head. And as you're doing, you just want to hit record. Or your band are just jamming away at the end of a rehearsal and, you really like what you guys are doing and you think that what you're doing could be turned into a song ultimately, but you don't want to lose the moment. Just tap the icon for Fender Studio, hit record, and you're recording just using the built-in mic. And it'll capture the essence of what is happening in the jam session. And then later you can disseminate that in another rehearsal and turn that into a song. So this is great for capturing spontaneous ideas. It's great for podcasting. It's great for, if you are interviewing somebody for a radio program or something like that as a journalist, then you can just capture this. And then, like I said, you can export this. Now, if you register Fender Studio with your Fender Connect account, then when you do that, you get some extra features unlocked. You get some extra guitar amps, extra bass amps. You also get a whole bunch more jam tracks. So I showed you all 20 last night. But when you first get Fender Studio, if you're not registered, you'll only get a couple of them. I think you only get 2, maybe 3. But if you register, then you get all of those 20 jam tracks unlocked for you. So that's immense and very, very impressive. But you also get the ability to export as an MP3 or a FLAC file. So if you're, like you want to just get this melody idea down, and then when you get home, you want to bring it into Studio One, you can export it as a FLAC file and just import it straight into a new track in your song that already exists in Studio One. And the same, if you're working as a journalist and you want to get that podcast edited up in Studio One, you can just bring the FLAC files in from Fender Studio into Studio One, and then away you go. You can edit the podcast or the interview, make it sound great, and then send that off to wherever it needs to be sent off to. So there's a whole bunch of applications here for Fender Studio. I think it is extremely useful. Let's go see what questions we got here. Carl says, you may not know, how fast will the attached USB-C device draw down battery on a phone? No idea. You're going to have to test that. It's going to vary from device to device. So depending upon what your phone is and how much charge is on your battery, so on and so forth, how new the battery is. If the battery's new, it might not be too bad. But if the battery's been, charged, drained and charged a few times, the mileage will vary, I think. But I couldn't give you an exact figure. Dwayne says, I'm having issues trying to register the Fender Studio app. I initially used my Apple account to begin. Now, when I try to register, it wants my Fender credentials. Okay, so yeah, the best way to register this is not with social media, or an Apple account or anything like that. The best way to register this is with a Fender Connect account. So if you don't have one, you can create one. It's pretty darn easy to do that. And in fact, in the initial dialog box that comes up when you first open the app, if you've not registered it, it'll say log in or create account. If you tap on your device or on your Mac or whatever computer you're using, you click on create, then that will take you to fender.com where you can create your Fender Connect account. And then once that is done, you go back to the app and you click login, and you log into the app with the new credentials for that account that you've just made, and hey presto, you'll be registered. I have tested that personally myself. I've got a bunch of dummy accounts and I tested it on every single one, and every single time, successful registration. So yeah, it does work. Does work indeed. But I don't think the social media side of it works particularly well just yet. Give that a little bit of time. That will get sorted out, I'm sure. But for right now, don't try and sign in with social media or with your Apple credentials or anything like that. Go ahead, create Fender credentials, and you should be good to go. Let's see, what else do we have? Mike is here. Shorty Beard is here, which is awesome. He says, I already have the new app downloaded, planning on putting it through its paces tomorrow. Awesome. He says, I connect the X32 at the venue to my iPhone and record multi-track off the board from live shows. Been using GarageBand, but want to see how this handles it. Yeah, let me know. Let me know how it goes. The thing to bear in mind is, it has a track count limit. So to start with, without being registered with Fender Connect, you only get 8 tracks. However, if you register, you get another 8. So that makes for a total of 16. It does have a track limit. So you will find that you will reach that track limit if you are recording to the app from a mixing board. Won't quite have the same effect, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, we're only just started with Fender Studio. There is a lot more to come and a lot more features to be added to it. This is just the start. So let's see. Brett says, a book with brushes can be a great drum sound. I learned that from John Pizzarelli. He had an entire album where that was the only percussion beyond piano. Yeah, Steve Gadd has used pizza boxes on records. He's talked about that in interviews where he used brushes on a pizza box for a record. Basically, one of the pizza boxes they'd had left over from having dinner in the studio that night, and they recorded, I think it was piano, upright bass, and vocals, and Steve basically on this pizza box. He had like a Yamaha 9000 custom series drum set, all set up with all the Zildjian cymbals, 20, 30 grand's worth of drum set, 20, 30 grand's worth of microphones on the drum set, and they captured this pizza box with his brushes with, I think, an SM57 or an SM58. I can't remember which it was, but it was basically just a couple of dynamic mics pointed at the box. And that was that was it. And it sounded great. The net result was wonderful. Let's see. It would be awesome for Foley recording as well. Yeah, I think it probably would. Slicker than a champagne glass at Diddy Free. That's just funny. If you're recording where noise is an issue. Right, okay, so if you're recording where noise is an issue, there is an expander, which is going to help you, but there isn't really a noise reduction plugin in Fender Studio. The best you're going to get is the expander. Now, when I recorded my dad on his guitar using the iPad, I didn't use a microphone. I basically just used the built-in mic on the iPad, and I stood about maybe 2.5 feet away from him, pointed towards maybe the 14th fret of the guitar, and I just let him play. And then I used the expander just basically to dial out a little bit of noise that was in the room, and the result was actually very, very good. One thing I need to do is get that guitar part out of the iPad and into Studio One, and then you can actually hear it. I will do that, actually. I'd have to get my dad's permission first. He might not like the whole world hearing his guitar playing. But we'll see. We'll see what he says. Shortybeard says, I have mine registered, and luckily I have never needed to go over 16 tracks. That's pretty cool. Is there a recording length cap, or just however much storage I have available? Yeah, I believe it comes down to storage, fundamentally. How much storage available you have on the device. And bear in mind that the higher the sample rate and the lower the device block size, yeah, sure, you will get some better quality and you'll have some lower latency, but the file size will be bigger. And so it will take up more of your storage space on your device. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Let's see. Dwayne says, it's crazy, but for some reason I can't create a Fender Connect account. Do they have a support link? Okay, so I don't know about the support link. However, there should be articles on how to create a Fender Connect account. It should be pretty darn straightforward. I had no trouble doing it. You can just go to fender.com and there's like a little sort of avatar type picture thing at the top right corner, and you click on that, and if you have an account, it'll let you log in. If you don't, there should be a link there to create an account, and you just tap or click on that, and you should be able to just create the account from there. That's how I did it with all my dummy accounts anyway. Kyle says, it's my birthday tomorrow, 66 times around the sun. Okay. Well, I guess we have to go over to the lounge for this. But this is for you. Happy birthday, Kyle. 66 times around the sun. Happy birthday, mate. I hope you have a wonderful day tomorrow and that you get spoiled rotten by your friends and family. That would be fantastic. Let's see, what else do we have here? But yeah, happy birthday, dude. Brett says, I was actually thinking about monitoring purposes whilst recording something like your keyboard or electric guitar to bypass your device speaker. Yeah, I think headphones, earbuds would be the answer. Now, unfortunately, I think most iPads in particular don't have a wired connection anymore. In fact, most cell phones don't, so they have to be wireless. And yeah, I get that with Bluetooth, there's going to be some inherent latency, but I'm pretty sure that there are some workarounds that you can do to mitigate some of that latency. Depending upon what device you have, you're going to have to do a little bit of Googling on how you can reduce that latency. But yeah, Bluetooth inherently has latency because it was never designed for a recording scenario. However, if you are mixing, if you're on that plane scenario where you're flying back from Edinburgh to LA, having done all of your recording and everything whilst you were here on holiday in glorious Scotland, and you captured all of these wonderful sounds of Scotland, like maybe you captured the atmosphere of one of the many bars and pubs that's in Edinburgh, and then you captured somebody on the Royal Mile playing bagpipes. Why you'd ever want to do that is beyond me, but that's just my personal opinion. You might be here and say, hey, you know, I've never seen a real actual bagpipe player. I'm going to go record one. And so you may actually have done that all with Fender Studio on your iPhone or your iPad, and then you want to mix it all to create this, you know, audio atmosphere of Scotland or something like that. And you could be doing that on the plane on the way home with your earbuds. Because it's already recorded, you don't have to worry about latency at that point. Doesn't matter. Really just doesn't matter how long it takes for the sound to come from the iPad to your earbuds. It's irrelevant at that point. It's only when you're actually recording that the latency with the earbuds might be an issue. However, what you might need to do if there is no headphone jack and the latency is too much for you with the earbuds, then what you might have to do is basically find a compromise volume level where the speaker of the device doesn't pick up the mic too much, and you know, you don't get too much bleed, but you might have to settle for the fact that you're going to get at least a little bit of bleed. So those are some things to bear in mind. Carl says the Fender device has a headphone jack. Yes, the Link IO device has a headphone jack. It does. So that plugs in via the USB socket on the phone. So in my case, that's going to be the bottom here. So you plug the Link IO into this at the bottom, and it's got a headphone socket on the top and the mic, the line input underneath it. So yes, the Link IO would be great for that. And yes, with the headphone socket there, you're not going to have the latency. You can just use regular wired earbuds in that case. Or, you know, a set of these would do the job as well. So, yeah, I hope that helps answer some of those questions that you guys have. Yeah, the Fender Link IO, I think it's like $90, I think. Something around that region. Yeah, $90 US, yeah. Which is going to be about £70, roughly. Yeah, Ron. See above. Link IO. Because the Link IO has that guitar input, and it also has a headphone input, and it connects to the standard Apple Android powered data port on your phone. That's literally what it does. It does exactly what you're talking about. So no need for a feature request because that device is already available. And you can go get it right now from Fender.com. Follow the link that Billy posted above because that device literally does exactly what you're talking about. So it's well worth investing in. You know, if you're going to be using Fender Studio a lot, then it's well worth. Ron says it took me so long to type that message. I missed the post earlier in the thread. There you go. Billy has put the link in there for you immediately after you said that. So that should help. Mike says the minor version of Happy Birthday sounds so dark. It really does. F minor is such a dark key. There is some debate as to which is the darkest minor key. And there has been quite a bit of research. And I think a lot of discussion has kind of formed or coalesced around the idea of D minor being the darkest key. Kind of is pretty dark, right? Yeah, that's pretty dark. Yeah, Nigel Tufnell says that D minor is the saddest of all keys. It's sad, isn't it? I don't know that it's the darkest, but it's certainly the saddest sounding key. Which is why I think, you know, a lot of funeral music, such as, you know, if you're Catholic, the Requiem masses by Mozart and by Bach are, I think they are in D minor. Although actually, I think the last Requiem that Mozart wrote, the one that he was writing when he died, so he never completed it, that is in G minor. G minor is quite dark as well. Yeah, G minor's pretty dark. How does dark sound? Just like that. That's dark. You know, F minor sounds dark too. You know, that's kind of dark. Or, you know, if I did this. Now that's kind of bright. Much brighter because we've got the major third there. And then this would be dark. Where we've just gone to D minor. Although D minor doesn't necessarily have to sound dark or sad, it can have a sense of urgency about it, you know. So that kind of, you know, has more of a sense of urgency about it. It's a bit funkier for a start. And actually it doesn't sound dark particularly. So context again is key with that. As opposed to C major, which could arguably the brightest sounding key. Yeah, I think C major's pretty bright. E flat is one of those, E flat major, that's one of those keys which sounds, to me, it sounds really rich and regal. And some of this that we're talking about here, dark, light, rich, you know, and all of that is all to do with the reason why that happens is because of equal temperament, which is, as I've described before, equal temperament is a compromise. It's basically taking all the notes, all the 88 keys of the piano and any other keyboard instrument, and therefore by extension every other instrument, and basically making the distance between each semitone exactly equal. The thing that you introduced there, as Jacob Collier has outstandingly described and explained, the piano itself is not completely in tune because of equal temperament. Now, when we play it, we're kind of used to equal temperament because it's what we know, by and largely. So equal temperament to our ear, to our well-adjusted ear, sounds normal, sounds fine, sounds in tune, but it really actually fundamentally isn't, because of the fact that each semitone has been equalized to being exactly the same distance between one and the next one, regardless of octave. So the problem with that is you inherently have notes that are less in tune than others, fundamentally in tune. And also, it means you're compromising the harmonic series of the overtones as well, which helps create the issue with notes not being completely in tune. So there is an argument that 12-tone just intonation is better, and that's the argument that Jacob Collier makes, is that 12-tone just intonation is far better than equal temperament. Go and watch his video on it. It's fascinating, and it's hard to kind of not agree with him, actually, on that particular subject. But this is the reason why some keys sound darker or brighter or richer, more vibrant, or more regal, more strident, and all of these describing words than other keys. It's because of equal temperament basically butchering, not really butchering, but basically compromising the odd and even harmonics of the harmonic series of each note. So there you go. And that's a great way to end the show because, you know, we've talked Fender Studio, we've talked about it as a songwriting tool, and we've also talked about key centers and what makes one major key brighter than another and what makes one minor key darker than another. It's a great way to end the show. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming and checking this out. We peaked at 18 people, but we've only got 11 likes. Come on, guys. Pick up the pace on the likes, please. I would appreciate that. It would help me out a lot because every time a like gets registered, the YouTube algorithm goes, people like this. Let's recommend it to some other people. And the more likes I get, the more recommendations I get by the algorithm, and eventually my live streams and some of my videos might actually end up on the YouTube homepage, which has happened, by the way. My Studio One 7.0 video, the overview video that I did for the initial version of Studio One 7, that video made it onto the homepage because it had so many likes and so many views in a short space of time. I think we got like 12,000 views in 24 hours. It was crazy. And so it got recommended to the YouTube homepage. And that, of course, introduced Studio One to a whole bunch of people and my channel to a whole bunch of people that had never seen it before. And so I ended up with like an extra 150 subscribers, which is great. I love it. We are marching inexorably towards 6,000 subscribers. There will be a small celebration when we get there because, it's another stepping stone. But really, my larger target is 10,000 subscribers. I want to get to 10,000. So that's kind of where I want to get to as my next major mile marker. We did 5,000 just a few months ago. I want to get to 10,000. We'll have a proper big celebration like we did for the 5,000. We'll do another one for the 10,000 when we get there. And then the next big marker after that is going to be 50,000. And then the next one after that is going to be 100,000. Because when we get to 100,000 subscribers, that's when we get one of those play buttons. So that would be awesome. So please do help me get there. I would appreciate it very much. I would love to be the first Studio One, specific Studio One YouTube channel to get up to 100,000. I know Joe Gilder's done it. I would like to kind of be the next after that. I would like to be the next one. So if you could help me out with that, that would be awesome, people. Let's make this a community effort. All right, folks. I will see you on Sunday for Sunday Night Live, where we will be going back to normal broadcasting, where we'll be talking about Studio One. Maybe not quite so much talking about Fender Studio, although I'm not going to not take questions about Fender Studio because it is still a new thing. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, see you then. See you Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Good night.